Hi, my name is Angelica Schuyler. What is your name?
Geraldine Josephine Schuyler Villalobos.
If you could change anything in your life, what would it be?
Oh my God. I'm not really sure, but I think I'd probably put my family first before my education. That would be the change.
And why is that?
Because when I did all my education before I started my family. And I had one daughter, and she's 28, and I didn't have her until I was 36. So I missed a lot of my youth with her because I was already older when I had her.
Has your outlook on life changed from when you were a young adult?
Yes, it has. It's shown me, or it's become very much harder than what you really imagine when you're a young person. You just think, oh yeah, go to work, go to school, and come home, and do your thing and whatever. But it's a lot more than that, and you find that out only by going through everything in your lifetime.
What decade in your life was the most challenging?
The most challenging, probably when I was in my 20s was most challenging because I was in school and trying to work part-time and afford to go to school, so I tried to do it both, and thank goodness I didn't have any kids because that would have been very hard to do. So that'd probably be the most trying time.
What advice would you give to my generation?
To stay in school, and don't think that when you graduate from high school that that's the end of school, because it's not. And you have to go and get what you want in life, and that involves school. So education is so important nowadays, or even when I went to school. And just remember that you learn something every day of your life. I'm still learning stuff, and look how old I am.
What are your thoughts on today's economic situation?
I'm glad I'm collecting my Social Security before it's out of here. But yeah, it's kind of hard right now. It's troubling with all the stuff that's going on economic-wise, job-wise. I know my son-in-law has a hard time trying to find a job, and my daughter's in school and she's working, and that sounds familiar. But she's got 2 kids to watch over too, which I didn't have.
Where were you born and what year?
I was born in Milwaukee in 1949.
Did you like it there?
I spent my whole life there, so that's all I knew other than coming up to Oneida in the summertime and staying with my grandma Abby. My parents would always come every summer, and we would stay like the whole month of July. And we loved that time because it was just like so free. It was so, you could do what you want, which wasn't a lot because you're not in town, you're in the country. But you could do things outside. You could play and do whatever, ride your bike. So it was a lot of fun.
Did you have a pet when you were growing up?
No, but my grandma Abby did. She had a dog, and it was called Brownie. And we always enjoyed Brownie every July. We came up here. But no, we didn't have one in the city. It was too hard.
Was your father part of the Indian relocation program?
Yes. Yes, he definitely was, and that's why my father's whole family moved to Milwaukee. His brothers, his sisters, or he's got one sister, and we were all down there. So we were like a little community because they were all together, and half the time they lived in communes almost, what you would call a commune today. But I mean, they'd not buy a house, rent a house, and everybody would be there. My uncles were there, my aunt, all my cousins, I mean, and it was just part of the norm. So we grew up all together, and that was okay. And then when we started going to school, it was just a fact that You know, you're not going to just go to school with all your own kind. And it was fine because I went to grade school that way, and I went all the way through high school that way. And it didn't seem as if there was as many problems as there are today with racially motivated things that go on now in school.
What did you like to do most when you came up here?
We would go to church with my grandma on Sundays, and during the week we would help her do the wash, and when she would go to the market and get strawberries and everything, we would help her with that and help her cook, help her bake. So we had a lot of things we could do, plus we had duties with her. She always was like, you know, right on top of it. Okay, one of you take the laundry out and start hanging it on the lines, and and the other one do this and do that. So I don't know, it was just free time, though. It wasn't so structured as in the city when we were there. You know, I mean, we had chores in the city too, so.
Yeah. Who was more strict, your mom or dad?
My dad.
Why is that?
I don't know, I think he thought it was the manly thing to do. And he was at work all day, so it was always my mom at home. We were in school, and then we'd come home, and, you know, you always heard, you know, wait till your dad gets home. Whatever, but he was pretty good. He never had to take his belt off or anything. We never had any type of discipline like that. It was always just his voice was scary enough.
What did your house look like? Is it still the same?
Well, the house I grew up in was a 2-bedroom, living room, dining room, kitchen, and 1 bathroom. And my family had 4 girls, so you know that 1 bathroom got a lot of use. And my dad was always like, I got to get in there first. I got to go to work. So, and I don't know. I mean, it's torn down now. But yeah, that's all I ever knew. And we only had 2 bedrooms, and we had 6 people in there. So it was kind of crowded, but I don't know, it didn't seem crowded to us at the time. It was just what we were used to, so.
What traditions did your family have?
Some of the traditions were, we always said prayers before each meal, and let's see, we would go to church and Sunday school. Every Saturday we went to Sunday school, and then Sunday we would go to church. Especially my mom was insistent upon that. And her grandfather was Chief Cornelius Hill, who was also the first priest in Oneida. So I think that background of Christianity played a big part in her upbringing, especially because she went to a girls' school out in South Dakota. But that was some of ours, because we didn't have traditional ways that much. In Milwaukee, we had different things that functions we would go to that were native. But in the house, we didn't have that too much. It was more American.
So you were like raised around like the church instead of like the longhouse?
Yes. I grew up outside of Oneida, so like I said, it wasn't the first thing that we were involved in or anything. My grandparents up here, when we would come up here, my dad would speak Oneida to my grandparents, and they understood everything. My mother was reluctant to speak it, but she understood everything. She went to a school where, you know, obviously my parents were in school during the days that they prohibited you from speaking the language. So my mother, you know, remembers that, so she never spoke it then. Once she came home from school, she just didn't speak Oneida. Her parents spoke English too, so she stuck with the English, but she understood everything. And my grandmothers, and I never knew my grandfathers, both of them were gone before I was even born. But my grandmothers spoke Oneida to my dad, and my dad loved speaking the language. He couldn't wait to get up here in the summer times to speak the language to all his friends, his relatives, and I remember him always, any place we went, Parish Hall, if there was something going on there or whatever, he'd always, you know, Sagoli, Sezonkwait, which means hello, all my relatives and friends. So I remember him saying that all the time. And he loved that part of it. I think the surge of being reinvested into our culture and our language, which has just come about since like maybe the 70s or something, is a very positive step towards keeping our language and keeping the culture alive within our people. Because a lot of people went outside the reservation and kind of learned the different ways of the other people, the white people, the black people, Latin people, and they kind of got away from our culture. So when I think of my culture, now that I'm up here on the reservation, I live up here again. Or not again, but for the first time. But I know a lot of people because of my days and months in the summer with my grandmother. And I've been very interested in all the things the culture can bring to all of our people. So for me, it's very interesting. I spend a lot of time with Loretta Matoxin, and she goes over things with me, and she shows me old pictures and documents, and I'm savoring all that stuff because I make sure I make copies of it, and I keep track of all that stuff so I can give that to my daughter, my grandkids, because they won't know and understand it until they live it. So right now they're living it because they were all up here. But when you're not in the Oneida Reservation and you're off the Oneida Reservation, some of that goes away because, like I said, you blend into society. There was a lot of Native Americans living in Milwaukee at the time because there was a lot of people that came right from Oneida Reservation to Milwaukee. So a lot of them were relatives, and I went to school with a lot of kids that I didn't even know I was cousins to until I thought, well, I'm going to ask him if he's Indian or something, because then they were, and we're like, oh my God, there's so many Indians in our school. And it was really a blend of a lot of different cultures. So I was glad that I got to meet a lot of Polish people, a lot of Mexican people, Latin people, a lot of my own tribe that I didn't even know existed in Milwaukee. So they were to school with me, you know. So it was a good blend of everybody, and everyone got along. Now it's really hard for me to understand why the big cities are so segregated in the fact where, somebody's always fighting against each other because of their color. Because when I went to school, I went to school in the 60s, high school, and there was none of that. And I went to school with blacks and Mexicans, whites, whatever, and we all got along. There was no fighting like there is nowadays. And so it's hard for me to understand why a big change has happened like that, because it just, we never had any of that. We were all equal, even if we were different colors.
What advice would you like to give me?
Other than staying in school and trying to stick with something that you're interested in, or at least find out what it is as soon as you graduate. You might even know now before you graduate that you're interested in something. But stick to it and don't let things get in your way so that it detours you from the end result, and just keep going for it, because you can do it. It's just, sometimes it's very hard, but if you stick to it and that's what you want, you can go after it.
Hi, my name is Vincent Webster, and your name is?
Dorothy Ermans.
Can you tell me about your parents? What was it like growing up?
I grew up, well, I didn't grow up here. I was born here, and then I moved to Milwaukee when I was about 8, 9 years old, because I was still in grade school. My dad went in the service, and when he come out, he got a job in Milwaukee, so we had to move to Milwaukee. And I've been there ever since till I moved back here about 8 years ago. Went to school in Milwaukee, got married in Milwaukee, had my kids, and I worked down there, and then I retired, and then I come up here.
And what was your husband's name?
Joseph.
And your children?
Well, I had 8 children, but I lost 2.
Oh.
I lost my youngest daughter and my oldest son. My oldest son was named after his dad, Joseph.
Have you accomplished what you wanted in life?
Not really.
Why is that?
I wanted to stay in Milwaukee and work, but I had to retire, and then my brother that passed away, he's the one that brought me up here. And been ever since. I go with the elderly up here as often as I can. And in Milwaukee, I worked as a teenager in Milwaukee. And then I got a job at the Pabst Theater with my youngest daughter, the one that passed, and that's where I retired from. I was cleaning at the Pabst Theater. That's where I retired from.
Are you like the middle child or
I'm the second youngest.
second youngest?
Second youngest out of 9.
You had a pretty big family.
Yeah, there were 7 girls and 2 boys. They're all passed on now. Just my one sister. She still lives here. Jane. We had a big old house up there where that water tower is now. There was a house. That's when we all our brothers and sisters lived there. We didn't have no electricity, no inside toilet. We had to get our water from a well. And my mother made bread and everything.
How far away was the well? Like a mile?
No, we'd go down the hill and get it out of the creek. There was a creek there then. I don't know if it's still there.
Oh.
Yeah.
Is your house still the same?
No, it's gone.
Oh. When you were little, did you remember any games that you used to play?
We didn't have too much time to play games, because our dad had a little farm, and we'd have to take care of that, feed the pigs and chickens and all this other stuff. But we still had fun.
And what did you do?
We didn't have, we played outside in the snow, and in the summertime we didn't have much because my mom would do a lot of canning, and we'd have to help her do that. Because when my dad went into service, it was just my mom and us kids. So the farm was gone by that time. I mean, my dad got rid of the animals at that time, and we just stayed in that house until we moved to Milwaukee.
What traditions does your family have?
Traditions?
Yeah.
They go by the turtle things. Because I'm a turtle clan, and we go to all these dances and whatever I can to do that.
Did you like going?
Mm-hmm. I still enjoy going.
Did your mom or dad go to boarding school?
My mother did. She went to, I don't even know the name of it. It was way out there. But I don't believe my dad did. My dad couldn't read. But he passed it in the Army. I don't know how, but he passed it in the Army.
How old were you when you met Grandpa? When you met your grandpa and grandma?
My grandma and grandpa?
Yeah.
Oh, I was about 5, 6 years old when I met him.
Do you remember anything about him?
I remember my grandpa used to be a mason, whatever they call him, mason worker with gravel and stuff like that. And my grandma never worked; she just stayed home, made blankets and cooked on one of those old-fashioned stoves with wood. She'd have to cook with, but she did a lot of canning. That's about it.
Did you ever do any of that with her?
I got some of her recipes, yeah. I still do them sometime. Today is more for the kids to learn more, because way back then we didn't have all this culture stuff. Because my grandchildren now, they're into dancing and singing and all this other stuff. And when I was growing up, we didn't have that.
Why?
I don't know. I guess my parents just didn't believe in it.
What makes you proud of your mom and dad?
The way they raised me, to go to church, and I never graduated from high school, but they made sure I went to school, and they passed before I could. I went to high school, but I didn't graduate, and well, they satisfied like that as long as I went to school. I wasn't into all this stuff they kids are into nowadays. Because when we lived up here, all of us did. There was 7 girls and 2 boys. We all lived in a big house, and we all had chores to do. The oldest ones would do something, and like me and my younger sister, she's passed on too. We didn't have to do too much. The older ones took care of everything. We walked from that house on top of the hill all the way to Chicago Corners to go to school.
Wow. What changes in the U.S. you observed in life?
What?
What changes in the U.S. have you seen?
Changes?
Yeah.
Oh, all this electronical stuff and new buildings and everything coming up.
Has your outlook on life changed since you were a teenager?
Yeah, yep, a whole lot. Because when we was teenagers, we didn't have none of these gangs and all this other stuff like this. We had fun when we was a teenager. Even though there wasn't much to do up here, but we still got around. My ma had a car.
What kind of car?
The ones that they had when, oh geez, must have been about I don't know, 50, somewhere around there.
What decision in your life was the most challenging? Explain, please.
Trying to get used to all this new stuff. The computers and all this other stuff.
What advice would you like to give me? as a-
Stay in school. Get an education.
And is that it?
Stay in school, stay healthy, get a good education. Grow up to be something. Somebody. What do you want to be?
I wanted to be, I'm going to college.
Hi, my name is Michaela Welch. What's your name?
I'm Charlotte Walshinsky.
Which family are you from?
Which family? My mom's name was Skenador, Savella del Skenador. My dad's name was Levi Parker Webster.
Can you tell me about your mom and dad while they were growing up?
It was sort of an interesting situation. It was a May-December type of marriage. My mom was only 15, and my dad, I think, was 33 when they married. But he was quite the catch. He was handsome. He had been around the world, and she was, you know, a native, lived on Overland Road, in fact, right up the road from where I live, and probably hadn't been anywhere at that young age. So that was sort of neat.
What makes you proud of your mom and dad?
Well, I came from a family of 14 children with 13 living. That was quite an accomplishment right there. And then my dad always had a good job, but you know, you got to provide for that many people. It still was, you know, hard to do. So I'm proud of them that they brought us up, and I'm proud of all my brothers and sisters and the way they turned out. So.
What were your favorite subjects in school?
Actually, I think I favored science. Not that I selected it, but I enjoyed it. But also English, avid reader, and accounting, bookkeeping for some reason. My hand was always up first. So.
What was your first job?
Probably babysitting. Then after that, my mom cleaned houses, and she had somebody she knew that needed help. So I cleaned, we called him back in the day, Mrs. Beach's house.
When you were younger, did you get an allowance?
No, there really wasn't the need for money, really. I mean, I hate to sound so old-fashioned, but if you had a nickel, you got a lot of candy for a nickel. And you didn't go to movies that much, or didn't have videos to go by or any of that. So there really, you know, wasn't a whole lot to.
What did you do when you would hang out with your friends?
Probably when we were small, we played a lot of table games like canasta, Monopoly, so forth. And as we got older, it was going to the parks. Summer and winter, we'd spend all day at Fisk Park or Mather Park, because I lived on the west side of Green Bay all my life. So, yeah, those type of things.
Who was more strict, your mom or your dad?
Neither one of them. They were very, you know, fair, and I think, you know, maybe if they had any problems with us, I think they just handled it together, and it wasn't real noticeable. We were a pretty quiet family too. So.
What did your house look like?
We lived mainly, or what I remember as my home is Neville Avenue on the west side of Green Bay. The house isn't there anymore. It's a 2-story wooden house. It had no sidewalks, a huge backyard where we had a garden, and very friendly neighborhood. And I remember the boys would sneak out of the house, and they'd get out the back window upstairs, fall down on the garage door, and then jump off into the lawn. So.
Have you accomplished what you wanted in your life?
Well, I'm not a rock star, so guess not. No, I wish I could have taken more risk, but I didn't. And you sort of wish you had done a little bit more and been out there more. But I was pretty shy, and I learned how to outgrow that shyness, because you have to do that if you want to work and be around people. But yeah, I think I accomplished quite a few goals.
What advice would you give to my generation?
Well, right now, I guess maybe I would say be more kind to each other. It seems like people are not, really listening to each other or talking to each other. Everything's so fast, and there's so much media out there where you use everything. Really, when you think about it, some kids don't even know how to write a note or how to address a card, because they don't do that anymore. So yeah, I would say just be nicer to each other.
If you could change anything in your life, what would it be?
Well, I wouldn't have what I have today if I changed it, so I guess I don't want to change anything.
What was the most satisfying event or situation in your life?
I think having a family is always the most. I have only one son, but that was, you know, the huge thing in my life, and it still is. But perhaps growing up in a large family like I do, there's always something going on, and yeah, family I guess would be the best thing. My mother and father spoke Oneida, but not to us, which is a shame, and I really didn't know who I was, but I knew something was different because I, of course, was a different color than everybody else in Green Bay, and it was hard. We did visit all the time. We went. My dad had a car. We drove to relatives in Oneida, and then as I became a teenager, I would try to hitch a ride to Oneida to visit my cousins and friends, and I really missed that part. You're so lucky to grow up with all your peers being Oneida. I really envy you for that.
Oh, why didn't your parents speak Oneida to you?
I think at that time, you weren't supposed to. My dad went to Carlisle School. He went to Philadelphia to go to school. He left there and went to the military, World War I. He was a pony soldier, and then didn't come home until his 30s. So therefore, you know, he probably had to come back to people he didn't know either, and you know, that was probably strange for him too. So,
What's a pony soldier?
he was in the cavalry in the World War I, and at that time they still used horses. I don't know too much more about it, but we have photos of him on his horse.
Does he ever talk about when he went to school?
Yep, my dad talked to us all the time. We would sit around the table doing our homework, and he'd be right there telling us stories. And you know what? We kids didn't listen. I know some of them, but like him meeting Jim Thorpe and so forth. But I'm not sure if I remembered him saying that or if I read it in the newspaper articles that he was quite well known for being a long distance runner. So we have a lot of articles about his military life and a lot about his athletic adventures. So.
Hi, I'm Grace, Little Star Palace, and
I'm Rita Summers.
what was the most satisfying event in your lifetime?
Event?
Yes.
Oh, I have lots of them.
Okay, tell me.
Well, I guess I didn't realize it, but when I was born.
Oh yeah, me too.
Yes, I was baptized, a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. That was very satisfying.
I think I'm baptized too. Any more?
Yes, I was called to serve on 2 full-time missions for the church. Other than that, you know, my marriage, my children, the birth of all my 4 children, very satisfying. Born at home in Outagamie County, because that's where my birth certificate was. When I was about 4 or 5 years old, we moved into the house that my dad built. In today's way of saying things, it was more like a shack. I did have a picture of it, but couldn't find it. But I do have a picture of my family when we were growing up. I think I had it. Yeah, here it is. This is me when I was 10 years old. Okay, that dress I had on is government issued dress.
What's that?
It was clothes that the government would give you.
Oh.
They're for free. I don't know what you had to do to get them, but you did. I had a bandage on my leg, the scar still there, because my dad, who was cutting grass with one of these sickle things, I came up behind him and he hit me in the leg, but I didn't know it was coming behind me. But anyway, I lived.
Who was more strict, your mom or your dad?
Oh, my dad. my dad. He was strict in a way that he made us do what was necessary and right.
Did you have any traditions in your family?
Oh yeah, especially at Christmas time. We couldn't afford a Christmas tree. So what would happen was my Christmas Eve, my dad would go to the Christmas tree places that sold them, and whatever was left there, he picked it up, took it home, and we had a Christmas tree for Christmas Day. For in the home, you know, back then we wore these long brown stockings. We each got a new pair with an apple and an orange in there with some nuts and some candy. That was our traditional Christmas present. Other presents we got were from the thrift stores, ice skates, stuff like that.
That's fun.
I do genealogy, and I have a picture here of my mom. And she was orphaned early in life, and she lived at that Oneida boarding school until it closed, and then she went from family to family, whoever would take her. I don't know yet who her dad is. I would like to find out.
Did you find her mom?
Her mom, yes, I have a picture of her mom. I know who her mom is.
Did you like school?
No, I did not. But I was the only one in my family so far that got a master's degree.
That's good. Did your family have big reunions?
Big ones, yes and no. Not until I got to be an adult. I have this picture of one of our family reunions. Give it, show it to that guy over there. But this was done back in 1996. We've only had like one or two since then.
Yeah. What advice would you like to give me?
Well, life is not easy. It can be. If you get on that right path and work all your life to get to what you want to do, or do what your goal is if you have one, you know, and work hard at it and stay on it. If you fall off, there will be hard times, but you can get back on it. Stay on it. As far as Oneida traditions are concerned, I don't know. I was born over there in the Methodist area. We were Methodist, and my dad was very strict, and we had to go to school. We had to go be there every day. Even if we were dying, we had to be to school. You know, and it paid off. You know, most of us got an education beyond high school. Some didn't. I didn't like school, but for some reason, something was driving me that way. And it wasn't easy, you know. And that's what I'd like to instill in my own kids is education. You know, my grandkids. Nowadays, going to school is easy financially. You might have to fill out a few forms to get there, but in my day, it's like the only school that would accept me was Brigham Young University. Okay, the other schools, my grades weren't good enough. Yeah. I didn't even know you had to have a lot of money to go to school. People talked about scholarships, but I really didn't understand what those were. And so I had to work. There were times when I didn't know where my next meal was coming from, but for some reason I was always provided for. I got a job at Utah Valley Hospital as a nurse's aide, but I was on call, so if they didn't call me, I didn't work, so I didn't have any money. And then sometimes they'd call me for the night shift, and I'd have to walk clear to that hospital at night, and you know, it wasn't easy. Yes. But for some reason, I did it.
Hello, my name is Baron Helena. Who are you?
I'm Noel Summers Clevin.
From the Summers family?
Yes.
Okay. So how was life in Oneida when you were younger?
Oh my, it was a lot different than it is today. We came from a very large family, come from a family of 12, 9 girls and 3 boys.
Oh, wow.
And it's so different because we didn't have running water, we didn't have an indoor toilet, we didn't have electricity, and basically, even though it was our home, a lot of people called it a shack.
Oh.
But so it was very different than it is today.
So the families were a lot larger back then?
I think a lot of them were a lot larger, yes, yeah.
So was it difficult having a lot of siblings in the shack?
I didn't know any different.
Oh.
You know, I didn't know any different. It was a way of life, and we weren't alone. There were I'm sure a lot of families like us, and so I didn't think it was difficult. I didn't know any better. So.
Did all of you go to school?
Yes, we all went to school. There were 2. My eldest sister, and the third one in the family didn't finish, but I believe the rest of us finished grade school and high school.
Did any of you go off to college?
I did.
What college did you go to?
Well, I became a registered nurse. I went to St. Mary's Hospital in Kankakee, Illinois, and that was after I graduated from East High here in Green Bay. I graduated from East High in 1950, and at the time when I graduated, there was a Bureau of Indian Affairs in Green Bay, and my dad and I went there sometime during my senior year because there was supposed to be money available for us tribal members to go on to school. And we went to this office and we were being interviewed, and the fellow who was sitting behind the desk was not Native, of course, and he was asking all kinds of questions like, you know, our names, our address, what kind of home, where I went to school and all that. When he got to the part when he asked my dad, he says, "Do you own your own land?" And my dad said, "Yes." And the guy picked up the paper, took it and ripped it apart in front of us, and he said, "If you're smart enough to own your own land, you're smart enough to send your own kids on to school, and you don't get any financial help." When we walked out of that office, my dad said to me, "That shouldn't have happened. We're entitled to education, health, and whatever the treaties had said, and you know." And he said, "So we're entitled to money, but I don't know how to help you. I don't have any money, and I don't know what to do. So I can't help you." So then I graduated from East High in 1950 on a Friday night. On a Monday, I was in Madison, Wisconsin, working at a St. Mary's Hospital. I started out in the laundry there, and I worked for a year to save money in order to go on to school. So then I started nurses training in 1951, like I said, at this St. Mary's Hospital, and I graduated from there in 1954. And as soon as I graduated, I came back to Wisconsin and started working at a Madison General Hospital in Madison, Wisconsin.
So do you have any kids?
I have 3. No, I'm sorry. I have 3 grandchildren. Oh. I have 4 children. I have children Nancy, Linda, Brian, and Jim.
Do they all go to tribal school?
The 2 girls, I think, are tribal members of the school. My grandson, Troy, lives in Minnesota, and he's out of college. He's 24, and he's out of college, and so he's working in Minneapolis somewhere.
If you had any advice for our generation, what would it be?
Well, if you were a girl, I'd tell you not to get pregnant in high school. And I'd also tell you, if education is your thing, to stay in school. Mm-hmm. If it's not, there are a lot of well-to-do people who do well without a college education. I don't know what I would have done without an education. It wouldn't, maybe I'd have lived in poverty just like our folks did, I don't know. But I'm thankful that I was able to go on to school and thankful that I got an education. And I would like to advise the young people to do that.
Yeah. Because there's so many opportunities out there, like even now, for to get an education, you'd get help by the tribe. So.
Right. Now the education is there. I mean, now the money's there because the tribe is giving it to you. Yeah. And I would take advantage. But like I said, there wasn't anywhere that I knew of, to go to get help when I got out of school.
So the funding really wasn't there when you were younger?
Well, it was supposed to be there, but like I said, because my dad owned his own land, the guy decided that I wasn't entitled to it.
So like segregation was still strong?
Oh, yes, it was very strong. I didn't notice it so much in high school, but I think the reason I didn't notice it was because us Native American children stayed together as a group, and we didn't mingle with the other population in school. It's not that anybody was mean or nasty to us, it's just that they just ignored us. Yeah.
They avoided you?
Yeah, yeah.
And has your outlook on life changed from when you were a young adult?
That's a pretty tough question. I'm sure it is, because when you're young, you think so differently than when you're, an elder like I am now. I'm so thankful for so many things, throughout my life that, I wouldn't have even thought of when I was a young person like you.
Like your goals changed?
My goals primary did not change. I wanted to be educated. I knew that, and I did accomplish that. And I did want to be married. I remember as a young girl, I wanted to be married, and I knew I wanted to have children. And I've accomplished all of that. And over the years, I think the primary changes that I've seen, like I said, we were born, into such poverty where there was nothing available. And when I got out of school, well, when I left home and got into a place where there was running water and a bathroom inside, I thought that was heaven. So the little things in life really, meant a lot to me. And over the years, like I said, I've just, there were so many things that I've seen. There wasn't television. Television was coming into view. I probably in the late 40s, and by the time I got out of school, people were, nurses training, people were starting to buy televisions for their homes, and that was in 1954. And like I said, the television, and now I carry a cell phone in my pocket. I never thought I'd be doing something like that. We didn't even have a phone in the house, again, when we were growing up. And when I got married and we had our first house, we were on a party line with a home phone. And so you couldn't even talk when you wanted to. If you picked up the phone and there was somebody on it, you had to wait until they got off before you could use the phone. And this is how much things have advanced over the years from
A lot of changes.
Yes, multiple changes. And there never was a computer, I learned to use a computer before I retired. I don't have one now, but I wish not to have one. It's too complicated for me,
So, the changes over, worldwide have been, really massive. But what do you think about the changes on the reservation?
Well, the changes that I seen, now I was gone from the reservation, like I said, as soon as I got out of high school from 1950, and I came back after I retired when I was 62 years old. So I was gone from that span of time off the reservation. When I came back, the casinos were here. And there were a lot of changes. And when I came back 20 years ago, what I seen happening to the tribe was that they were trying to get everybody into a home with running water, and the basics, so that nobody was without, running water, electricity in their home anymore like it was when I grew up. So there are a lot of changes. People no longer, at least I don't see them, live in the shacks, like we were living without, all the amenities that you have today in a home. There's just, we don't have to, when we were children, if we wanted to go anywhere, we had to walk. We would walk from Oneida to De Pere. And my folks, I remember when they would grocery shop, we would have to walk from Oneida to Freedom to grocery shop. So wherever we went, because we had no vehicle and couldn't afford one, we walked everywhere. And of course now everybody just gets in that little old car and go and goes. So that's a big difference too, where you don't have to walk and you don't have to wait. Like I said, we would, if we wanted to see a movie, which we probably seen when I was a kid growing up, maybe I seen 2 or 3 in my lifetime then. There just wasn't the facilities that you have available today. I mean, I just see so many, and of course there's schools on the reservation. The only school that I knew that was on the reservation when I was growing up was Silver Summit, and of course that's where I went. And then we were all shipped off somewhere to high schools, and there weren't any high schools on the reservation. So we were all shipped off somewhere to get educated. And a lot of the natives, just fell away from it. They didn't want to go to school, or they weren't welcome at the schools, and so they didn't finish. So there's a big change in in education. There's a big change in just the way people get around, the way we buy our groceries are right here. Everything's available today.
What do you think about the language and culture?
I don't know enough about it. I never learned the language, and I think the reason that we didn't learn the language, my dad spoke it. My mother understood it, but she didn't speak it. And our dad spoke it. But when our dad was in school, because he went to some government school and probably a boarding school, he was punished because he spoke the language. And so I remember one of my brothers saying to us one time about the only thing that he wished the folks would have done for us that they didn't do was to teach us the language. Well, I understood because my dad was punished for learning the language and going to school. And he wanted all of us to go on to school. So he wasn't about to teach us the language if it was about to get in our way. And he talked language an awful lot. He talked high school and education an awful lot to us kids to push us toward, further education. I think as a young person, you can learn it right along with everything else. I don't know enough about our culture to advise you. If it's a good thing, what I learned, I've retained, and what you learned as you were growing up, you should retain. We shouldn't get rid of our culture ever, and we should be proud that we're Native American. But like I say, I just don't know enough about it. And our dad was reluctant to teach us anymore because he didn't want us on the reservation. He knew at that time there was nothing there for us. There was no work, there was no schools, there was nothing. It was all poverty. And he wanted us off the reservation. So I really can't say a lot about the culture because I don't know a lot about it.
And there's just a lot of opportunities now, like with the culture and language, that it's immersed in the school, and that's what the school is here for, is trying to get that culture and language back into the community.